Hey everybody, this is Kevin here with Ken Sewing Center in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Folks, today I've got a neat treat for you. I've got one of the best educators Janome has, Christina Dolinar. I have Christine come many times to some of the quilting shows that we have. She knows these machines inside and out. She's one of the best educators Janome has. We're going to be talking today about the Janome 8200. The 8200 is one of the most popular machines that Janome has ever made. It has so many features to it. And typically, if I'm having a quilting show where I have a classroom, this is one of the models I like putting in it because it's really easy to operate, has so many features, and comes with so many accessories. It meets a lot of different needs. Whether you're sewing, utility sewing, or quilting, you're able to do it with this machine. Plus, because of the larger throat space, if you ever want to put it on a frame, you can do it. It's really ideal for that. This machine has an 11-inch throat space on it. It will have hundreds of stitches built in, and the stitches built in are very useful. You have all the different quilting stitches, utility stitches, you have some decorative stitches. We can combine those decorative stitches to make borders. And then we also have alphabets for making our own quilt labels or garment tags. The machine has an automatic tension, 11 inches from the needle to the inside of the sewing arm, and the convenience features of a computerized machine with the scissor, needle up, needle down, the auto lock feature. This machine has a removable accessory tray, so if I want to hem a pair of pants, I can do that with no problem whatsoever. But I'm going to turn it over to Christina and have her show you everything it is to know about this machine. We have a great special going on it right now. Give us a call or drop us an email. We'll be glad to help you with the 8200.
We want to give you a great overview and some lessons on some of the great features of your 8200 and how to access the stitches and changing throat plates and using all of the features for your sewing and quilting. So the first thing you're going to notice is that you do get an owner's manual. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about is in here already, but it's nice to have a visual of it and then to have this handy instruction book right next to your sewing machine so that you can, of course, refer to it. When we lift up the lid, that, of course, is where our threading and our bobbin winding takes place. But you can also see in the lid all the great decorative stitches that you have, the alphabets that you have. And you'll also notice in the lid where it says straight stitch needle plate, this red section. So you do have a straight stitch needle plate with your 8200. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And we're going to show you where you're going to store this when you're not using it. So the first thing we're going to do is actually wind a bobbin. So your bobbin winder, of course, is up here. And what you're going to do is take your bobbin, put it on the spindle, and then turn it. You might have just heard a little click. You might turn it further than you think. Just spin it and turn it clockwise until it clicks. And that has now secured your bobbin on your bobbin winder, and it's in a stay put position. When you look underneath where your bobbin is, you see a gray disc that has like 3 slots cut into it. Those slots are actually thread cutters, and that's how you're going to cut your thread tail when you start to wind your bobbin. So we have our spool of thread on the top up here. If you look on the top, you'll see some lines and a picture of a bobbin. And so this is actually telling you that after you go through these 2 first place positions on your threader, that you are going to go back behind, back toward the lid, over to your bobbin winder. When you get to your bobbin winder, have about a foot of thread off to your right. Wrap this around the top of your bobbin a number of times. And then use that little slot, again, which is a thread cutter, on that gray portion and pull it to your right, and your thread will cut. And now wind your bobbin. You can step on your foot control. You can step on your foot control, of course, after you engage the bobbin winder. So we just wrap the thread around it. We cut the thread tail, but we do have to push that bobbin to the right to engage the bobbin winder. and start thread winding. You, of course, can stop winding at any point along the way if you want just a partial bobbin, or you can fill it and it will stop itself. Didn't you like that little friendly reminder when I stepped on the foot control and it beeped at me? So in essence, it said, I'm not quite ready because I did not engage that bobbin winder. Now when you're done, just pop it to your left again and pick that up. And there is a convenient little thread cutter back here to just cut your thread tail of your bobbin. We'll put our bobbin in the bobbin area right now. Of course, to take the bobbin cover off, we're going to pull that little black textured piece to our right, and your bobbin cover will pop off. This is an easy set bobbin, meaning once we drop it in there and put it under the one metal guide and pull it around, it will be exactly how it needs to be. This is when we drop our bobbin in, it is dropped in like the letter P. Another friendly way to remember is if you pull this thread off, it will turn counterclockwise. So we're going to drop this in, put this underneath this metal guide. It's actually sticking up just slightly, so it's very easy to thread or to put your bobbin in its tension. Put it under that metal guide and pull it around where it says number 1 and number 2. Number 2 is a thread cutter. And now you're ready to go. All we have to do is put our bobbin cover back on. Janome bobbins are class 15 bobbins, but there's a slight difference to the Janome bobbins. When you look on this inside post of a bobbin, you'll see the letter J. What makes this bobbin different from other class 15 bobbins is the material that it's made out of. It has some rubber embedded in it so that as it is spinning off during your stitching, it is not going to needlessly wear away your bobbin case, that black case that your bobbin is sitting in. So not all class 15 bobbins are created equally, even in the height. But again, the Janome bobbins with the J in them is a great bobbin to use on your Janomes. Since we've wound our bobbin, we're now going to take our thread and thread our machine. And once again, there are a few little guides on the top base of your 8200 that shows you how to take it and bring it around and do that classic down, up, down. You'll see some numberings on your machine, a 1 and a 2. Here's number 3, which is coming down around this bottom and now ready to go to the take-up lever. Now, good practice when you're threading your Janomes is to do needle down, needle up. It's doing two things for you. It is putting that take-up lever in the correct position, and it's putting your needle in the correct position for the needle threader also. So touch that button, the needle up, needle down, which is simply an arrow looking up and an arrow down. Needle down, needle up, come up on the right side, down on the left side. It catches that take-up lever. This big hook at the top of the needle. There is a little hook at the top of the needle also. A little hook at the top of the needle, there we go. And then the needle threader. Now I find it most convenient to lower the presser foot while I'm using the needle threader. Just gives my fingers and my hands a little more room to use the needle threader. When you pull this down, it actually will stay down because a little wire has come through the eye of the needle. On this needle threader, to the left of the needle is just like what looks like a gray hook. You're going to put that thread under that gray hook, and then right where the needle is, in essence, kind of take your thread, put it up against your needle and hold it up at a slight angle, as you can see here, so that you know that that thread is now where that hook is. And when you let your threader up, boom, there it is. Okay? So holding that thread up just at a slight angle helps keep it the thread where it needs to be. No need to pull up your bobbin thread. It will come up with your first stitch. So let's just do some straight stitching. When you first turn on your 8200, it goes to straight stitch down the center of the foot. And you can see that on your screen, where this is a picture of the stitch as it's coming out of your foot. You can see where it says 4.5. This is a 9mm machine. So 4.5 is half of that, so that tells us it's down the center of the foot. And the stitch length is 2.4. So we have a stylus up in the top lid, which is great for touching your screen and accessing your stitches. So we're just going to stitch down the center of the foot for a second. Now, this is a mechanical machine in the fact that you are going to raise and lower your presser foot. So we've lowered the presser foot. We're going to start stitching. You can see it's set right now to end with the needle down in the fabric. Great feature for many of us, but you can always adjust that to end up out of your fabric. Now, right now, if you wanted to turn a corner, you could manually raise your presser foot in the back and turn your fabric. But with your 8200, you also get a knee lift. So this is a great accessory that you can use. Instead of reaching around the back to raise your foot, you're going to use your knee lift, so you never have to not be touching your fabric. Your knee lift is going to go in the hole that's on the front face of your machine toward the bottom. There's a hole right there. That knee lift fits right in there like that. And now, as we push this knee lever to the right, you can see how it can raise and lower your presser foot like that. Oh, sorry. Raise and lower your presser foot. Now, of course, when you're sewing at home, you should be right in front of your machine. And I'm setting off a little bit so that you can see the great features and the techniques that we're doing. So when you're sitting in front of the machine, you can easily use your knee to simply raise and lower the foot. The knee lift is also adjustable, so you can reposition what you are pressing with your knee to accommodate, your height and your chair and all of that. So we're done stitching. We can touch that scissor button. And now to raise the foot, again, we can reach around the back or use the knee lift, just like that. And there's our stitching. Now let's stitch a little straight stitch one more time. So I'm going to stitch about 1 inch. Now I mentioned that this was a 9mm machine. And when you are on straight stitch, you can actually adjust your needle position. You actually have 91 needle positions for your needle on straight stitch. Again, if you recall when we talked about the 2.4 being our stitch length and the 4.5 being our needle position, because we're on straight stitch, we can actually change this and see how it's changing itself by 1.1 millimeter at a time. So if we just work with this a little bit, you'll see, and we'll take this all the way up till 9. Touch the scissors, and you can see the first and the second jog were tiny little jogs. If it was at 4.5, we took it up to 5, which was very little. Then we took it up to this middle one is 6, but here's that 9.0, how it's shifted all the way to the right-hand side of your stitching area. So this is great, especially for quilters and that elusive scant 1/4 inch. You can always shift your stitch to be that perfect scant 1/4 inch that you prefer. Now if we take a look at the screen one more time, again it defaults to straight stitch down the center of the foot. But if you look at the very bottom, you'll see these 4 icons, and these 4 buttons are just very common stitches that many of us use every day. So we like to refer to these as quick select buttons. So if you were on straight stitch down the center of the foot, we can just touch that. It takes us back to straight stitch. If you wanted a zigzag, right there, it tells us what foot to use. It shows us that stitch and also our length and our width. Let's just stitch a little bit with the zigzag. So it defaulted to a 3.0 width and a 1.5 length. You can adjust this. The beeping is telling me it's at 9.0. That is the widest it will go. You can adjust your, oh, and that's the longest you can go. And then our knee lift, and there you can see our widest 9.0 and 5.0 length. So you can adjust those quick select stitches. The fourth one is a 1/4 inch stitch. So again, that's a quick way to get to that 1/4 inch piecing stitch. You know, it seems like everyone, most everyone, is quilting, and so rather than going through your menu of stitches, just by touching that right there gives you that scant 1/4 inch. But as you look on the screen, you can see a great collection of stitches. How do we access them all? And on each of these collections, you can see a big box that says mode 1, mode 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So depending on the mode that you are in will determine what stitch you get. On your screen, you have this word that says mode. And each time we touch mode, you will see that box right there change to a different number. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and back to number 1. And there you can see all of those 93, 94 stitches that you can access in mode number 1. Here's a blanket stitch, number 37. That is one of about 6 different blanket stitches that you get on your Janome 8200. So let's access a blanket stitch. The first one of the blanket stitches is number 37. In mode 1, we'll just select 3, 7, and there it is. Again, it's defaulted to the stitch length and width that it was set back at the factory. You can always adjust that with your length and width icons. It's asking for the F foot. The foot that we've been using is our standard A foot. It is important that you use the foot that is recommended because it's not just another foot. There's a feature to it that is beneficial for your decorative stitches. This is the A foot that we just took off. And you'll notice on the back side it is perfectly flat. And if we try to do a decorative stitch that has a buildup of threads on the back side, they'll probably get hung up and not feed through. The F foot, and you actually get 2 of them. This F foot has a bar in front of it and a little red triangle, which will help you position your stitch while you're doing your decorative stitches. This is what we call our F2 foot. You'll notice there's no bar in front of it, so it in essence is an open toe foot. You can see where you're going. But the important part is what's on the back side. It's a little difficult to see here, but there is actually a cutout, a little tunnel on the back side that allows the buildup of stitches to feed through. And so when it asks for the F foot, go ahead, pull that F foot out and use it, because it will make that stitching effortless. We're going to attach our F foot, and there's one of two ways you can put your feet on. You can just take your foot, pick it up, and snap it on. And we know it's snapped on because it's not falling off. The other method that you can use to put a foot on, and both are correct, there's no right or wrong way. You can actually just position that foot under there and raise and lower your presser foot to attach it. And I'll try to do this a little to the side so you can see it. So I would use my one hand to hold the foot and the other hand to raise and lower the presser foot lifter. So I can tell I need to come a little more to the back. Oh, there, I think it's snapped on. And I say I think it's snapped on because I heard the noise. But to double check, just raise your foot and make sure that foot is attached. Okay? So you'll have happy sewing with that. So we're going to do our blanket stitch. Little stabilizer. So if you're doing a decorative stitch, if you're doing an applique, traditionally you want to use some stabilizer to support your fabric. There is so much stitching going on. If you are not using stabilizer, your fabric will probably tunnel, and then you might not be happy with what you're working on. So use some stabilizer. There's a great collection of stabilizers available depending on what type of applique you're doing or what type of fabric you're using. We're going to lower our foot. We're just going to use our knee lift and start stitching. And we'll just touch that scissor button and raise our presser foot, and there's our blanket stitch. You, of course, can adjust stitch length or width, as we've been talking about, with your width, making it wider, making those little legs further apart. So there's whatever is pleasing to you. There's no right or wrong answer. There is no right or wrong answer with respect to the size of your blanket stitch or the width or length. So whatever is pleasing to your eye, whatever you like on your project is perfectly fine. Let's talk about some decorative stitches that are in mode 2. So remember, we're going to go to mode 2. And again, below each of these stitches, you see a number. And we're going to go to stitch number 83. And we'll just type in 83. It's a little flower. And you can see again, it's asking for the F foot. Again, we do have that on. Again, we do want to use that. Again, a little bit of stabilizer to give that fabric support. And we'll just start stitching. As we're stitching, you can see that fabric moving every which way. You can see I'm not holding my fabric. I'm just, if I was stitching along a line, I would be watching it and guiding it gently, but no need to have hands here or hands here, just letting it stitch. Now when you're doing a decorative stitch, and especially think of a design like this little flower, you would probably want to have a complete flower at the end of your row of stitching, not half of a flower. And for me, trying to gauge when to stop, that isn't going to be too successful. But one of the buttons that you have on the front of your 8200 is a button that looks like a target. That is our tie-off button. So however, in addition to tying it off, it is actually completing the decorative stitch. So you can just touch it. You have to have faith that you touched it. Step on your foot control and let it finish stitching. It will start slowing down as you come to the end. That's not because you've picked your foot off the foot control. It's because it's saying I'm slowing down because I'm coming to the end of my decorative stitch. So just step on the foot control. So you saw it slow down. We'll touch the scissor button, raise our foot, and there you go. Beautiful decorative stitch right there. And again, with the use of that target button, that tie-off button, you can complete that stitch and do no more. Your Janome 8200 actually comes with a straight stitch throat plate. When you look at this straight stitch throat plate, in addition to just down the center of the foot, there are two holes, one on each side of the center of the foot. So depending on the stitch that you're doing, it will only let you stitch in one of those three holes. When you attach your straight stitch throat plate to your 8200, it will only let you stitch in that hole, in one of those three holes. It will not let us do something silly like break a needle on the first stitch because we forgot we put this plate on. So I know I appreciate it going to straight stitch and only letting me use stitches that will be accommodated by this throat plate. In your lid, you can see actually the stitches that you are using, that you can use with your straight stitch throat plate. So not only straight stitch down the center of the foot, but also your 1/4 inch piecing. So you'll get a nice good stitch with the straight stitch plate on your 1/4 inch piecing. But how do we attach this? So if we slide our accessory tray off, there is this lever right here. When we push it down, our throat plate will pop up. We'll put our straight stitch plate on, and these two little prongs, I'll call them, on the left-hand side are going to go in first and snap that down. Now what happened, if you remember a minute ago, we were doing that decorative flower. You'll notice when you look on your screen now that it went back to straight stitch down the center of the foot and is actually just showing us a single hole rather that oval opening, so a different display. So again, it knows that we've put our straight stitch plate on. But then what do we do with this throat plate that we just took off? Where do we store it? And the answer is in your accessory tray. This will fit right here. You can slide your tray on, and this is a great place to store your extra throat plate that you are not using at the time. Okay? So again, we'll put that right there, and boom, it's in safe place for keeping. So we have our straight stitch plate on, which is perfect for when we want to do free motion. And you do get a number of free motion feet. You'll notice on your 8200, your free motion feet will always have a spring on them. It does not make them bounce or jump up anymore. Some folks feel that a spring foot is going to make it hop a lot and bother your eyes when you're doing your free motion stitching. Not so. It's just how it works best mechanically. So this is a traditional free motion spring foot. Has an oval opening because you could do, if we had this correct throat plate on, you could do a zigzag stitch with your free motion. The other free motion you get, the other foot that you get for free motion is this free motion foot. This is a convertible free motion foot. And what the word convertible means is that you have a little screw right here that will allow you to change to different plates on your free motion convertible holder. You get a closed toe free motion foot. You get an open toe free motion foot. And you also get this icon, this convertible foot that kind of looks like a Target button. It is perfect for you to do your echo quilting with. When you are stitching straight down the center of the foot where that horizontal northeast, southwest, the horizontal and vertical lines intersect. So we've attached our free motion foot on. We need to drop our feed dogs, and that's this lever over here on this, on the right side of your machine. If you just run your hand along the bottom and you'll push that away from you, that will drop your feed dogs. And now let's stitch. Quilters love to pull up their bobbin thread. So one way to pull up your bobbin thread is simply doing needle up, needle down. Many of us have the habit of reaching for our hand wheel to do that. The needle up, needle down actually pierces your fabric better than if you turn your hand wheel. So we'll do needle down, needle up, give this a tug. There you can see that bobbin thread. We'll raise our presser foot so that we can grab that bobbin thread. Lower our presser foot again, and now start stitching. I'm going to stop for a second just to get this thread tail out of the way. Now, quilters like to bury these threads, B-U-R-Y, bury those threads. Put these threads on a hand sewing needle and just pull it underneath this top fabric. Since we're just practicing, it's okay to just cut those threads and then do your stitching. Don't be afraid to practice. It's only fabric, okay? And the more you practice, the easier it will get for you to do loops and curves and everything. One key in doing free motion is going to be your speed. You have this slide bar to adjust your speed. And while I personally love to stitch at full speed ahead, free motion at full speed ahead is just a little too fast. And I guarantee you, if you go all the way to the slowest speed, you'll find that that's painfully too slow. So somewhere in the middle or just above middle. And then what I'm going to recommend is that you floor your foot control. It is only going to go as fast as your speed bar, that slide bar, is set. So your needle will be going at a nice constant pace because you are flooring your foot control. All you have to do is worry about moving your fabric at a nice constant pace. So we'll floor it. So you heard that needle going at a nice constant pace. You just worry about moving at a constant pace your fabric, and you'll get beautiful stitches. So I hope you'll enjoy your Janome 8200 and have many, many happy years of sewing on your Janome 8200.